Sunita Berry. Candid Talks is a social awareness initiative of priceless parenting that believes in appreciating, accepting, and celebrating uniqueness in each child. So our discussion today is on, how our lifetime adventures are the daily routines for people who are here on the panel today. So today we are going to talk about how, what, why of choosing armed forces as a career in life. Indian armed forces symbolize the ideals of patriotism, service, and composite culture of our country. And I think everybody from a child to an adult, in fact, all the adults, rich or poor, literate or illiterate, I think everybody as a child has once dreamt of getting into the uniform and being an officer. I think there would be nobody who would have never dreamt of it. And I was so touched by that video that was floating around after the Leh episode where the soldiers were going and that little boy was saluting. And, that really touched my heart. Because even to salute, everybody knows that what kind of honor we need to give to our soldiers who cross by anywhere. So that is the passion, that is the kind of patriotism that is built in Indians. So, youngsters who aspire to choose a career in achievement and adventure and challenges, I think the best career for them is defense is the best place for those children. And any career in any of the defense forces always bring in a lot of prestigious and respected position for people around. So let us get ready for a stream of pride, excitement that will rush down your spines with the eminent and brave panelists we have today. So I welcome you, Lieutenant Sandhya and Squadron Leader Verlin, Major Nupur Gupta, and Lieutenant Colonel Dheeraj. Welcome you all on Candid Talks.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you. Good
allow
evening,
me
everyone.
to give a short introduction about all of you. Can I do that? Go ahead with that. Okay. So I start with Lieutenant Sandhya Suri. She is a veteran naval officer. आप हाथ उठा के बोल सकती हो Sandhya, you are here so that they know who you are.
Yeah,
She is
that's
a
me.
yeah, she's a veteran naval officer who is also a change enabler, inspirational speaker, mentor, author, poet, entrepreneur, so much, my God. She is the owner of Esperance Media Publication Company. She is the national head of VIPA, that is Women Empowered Project Awareness. She has acclaimed numerous awards, but the latest one and a big one being the Inspiring Women of the Year 2020 by ASSOCHAM. We are privileged to have you here, Sandhya, with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good
The
evening to
other
you.
panelist is Lieutenant Colonel Dheeraj Wall. I think naam se sabko pata hai, so you don't even need to do like this. All other are women with you here today. Lieutenant Colonel Dheeraj Wall took a premature retirement after a color service of 20 years. He is working with a leading law firm in Delhi now as a vice president administration. He was commissioned in one of the oldest infantry battalion of the Madras Regiment 9 Madras. Dheeraj has had the opportunity of serving in various combat scenarios in his checkered career. He was also nominated to be a part of the Indian Army UN contingent to UNIFIL, that is United Nations Interim Forces to Lebanon. The other panelist we have is Major Nupur Gupta. Where is Major Nupur Gupta? There, yes. She's a retired Indian Army officer with 25 years of experience in teaching, training, and leadership development. She's a trained pilot and was selected in second batch of Indian Air Force in 1993. But the story took a twist from here. She could not join Air Force, but her passion pursued her and she joined Indian Army and retired as major from Corps of Engineers in 2007 after serving for 10 years. In pursuit of exploring herself, she teamed as consultant leadership development with CATS, Academy in Global Partnership of Worldviews, Consulting South Africa, and Persona Global USA, and has been the Dean of Management Institute at Vidya Knowledge Park. She is now a professor at a leading business school in Hyderabad. She's trained in flying, microlight and glider flighting, slithering, parasailing, rock climbing and mountaineering, para jumps and shooting. And the youngest one here we have is Squadron Leader Verlin. Okay, Verlin, hi, bol do tum bhi. Okay. So Verlin is a proud retired officer of the Indian Air Force. She was commissioned into the fighter controlling branch of the Indian Air Force in June 2008. She served for 10 years as fighter controller and participated in numerous air defense exercises. Post her premature retirement, she completed her master's in business administration from IIM Lucknow in 2018. A keen patriot and a motivated supporter of women in the armed forces, she works as a security coordinator with G4S Solutions for Indian Premier League and also works as a freelancer with multiple news channels, frequently voicing her opinions on matters of defense. Her recent endeavors include traveling to Ladakh at the height of the Info China clash and reporting live directly from the LAC. I'm sure the insights from our experts and their wonderful stories will help the participants internalize to make decisions about their life and their career today. So, can we start the discussion today?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So, Lieutenant Sandhya, I want to put the first question to you. Okay, because it was written in your profile that you are a speaker and a TEDx speaker. So, we want to utilize all that today. Why? Tell all the children who are here that why should one join the armed forces? And what is the kind of mindset or the skill set that is essential to be in the armed forces?
Hi, good evening, everyone. That's a pretty tricky question considering we live in an age where we have, information flowing in and out really quickly, and we don't know which information is the right one. That's also there. So, amidst all of that, it becomes very difficult to figure out whether, first of all, whether joining the armed forces is a matter of a career or it's a matter of an honor. So my belief always has been whether you want to look at it as a career or anything else, there's got to be that something, wo jazba jise kehte hain, that needs to be there when you join. Now, why we, those of us who joined much earlier, we keep believing and we keep saying wo jazba isliye hona chahiye कि when we started off, we didn't have too much going on with us in the sense of people acceptance, in the sense of sensitization, in the sense of even gender equality. So that is something that we fought for, you know, with each step. Every single day has been like that. No regrets whatsoever, because that's very difficult to quantify in the correct terms, because everybody's got a perspective. So I for myself, in fact, joined. I'm from the third batch of women officers for the Indian Navy, and when I joined, it was still very, very new. So the point of joining the armed forces is not about you being a woman or a man joining it for a career. I didn't join it for a career, although when you have career aspirations, maybe you put in a very different kind of effort. But it also comes with a lot of expectations. So when I joined, I did not expect anything from my country. I didn't expect anything from the constitution. I did not expect anything from the Tiranga except what I had to give. So that comes from a very different place of, it comes from deep within, that you talk about it. And patriotism, the way it is defined today, wasn't what it was then. Article, if you're not in support of, a few things, then you're not even considered a patriot. And the truth is that even my family members have called me unpatriotic for those reasons. So it's something that you grapple with, whether you are in the armed forces or not. It hurts a little more probably once you join, because you know the oath you've taken, you know that you've gotten in for a reason. And that reason is not about one-upmanship, it's about how unselfish you can be in the sight of what your country requires from you. So most of all, it is, hamari bari last aati hai, apni khud ki. So we've always worked towards that, and that has been my core focal point. When somebody asks me, where are you from? I'm happy enough saying India. So which part of India? I'm like, every part is India. So, that's basically where it goes to. Also, don't join the forces if you are joining it as anything but an Indian, please. Because don't tarnish what it demands from you, because it will demand from you something which is far deeply embedded in you as a human being first, as an Indian, as a citizen of the country. Let me just, I won't use up too many examples from my own naval career, but I will just tell you, in 2018, I went to Leh Ladakh. We drove down, a group of 6 of us, and we were all above 45, by the way. So when we drove, we came back. On the way back, we insisted on driving through Kashmir, despite the fact that Kashmir was closed down at that particular point of time. So we stopped at Kargil, and the next morning we went and visited uh, the biggest pilgrimage center I can ever find and recommend to each of you who wants to join the forces or who has joined the forces. You must visit the Kargil War Memorial at Dras, because that's so important to understand the ethos of what it requires of you to be in the armed forces. I paid my homage to the warriors, but then after that, it's about turning right and walking into that museum. It's a very tiny room, and it holds a lot of power, and that power is right there on the granite. Names of soldiers who have died, who have sacrificed their lives, and there is no discrimination. There are names. You will have somebody from Karnataka right beside somebody who's from, eastern Assam. There's somebody from, Madhya Pradesh, and their names probably reflect on the places, the religion, the spaces that they come from. But the common factor is they didn't know me. The common factor is I did not know them, but they've died, and they've died for us. So that if you don't have that emotion, when I talk about jazba, that is what it means. उस जज्बे के साथ अगर आप ज्वाइन करते हो, क्योंकि कोई आपको गिनेगा नहीं, और ना आपने गिनना है कुछ beyond your tiranga, beyond the samvidan, nothing else. And if you can manage that, please join. If you cannot, my advice is, if you're looking for a career, please join something else. There are hazard things you can do in life, still make a difference, but the armed forces demands something a little extra from you. I sat and I sobbed there. A grown-up adult like me who had served in the armed forces sat and cried. I sobbed there. It took me about 30 minutes to get a hold of myself and walk out from there with all my tears gone. And I can still feel it. And that is what you need to have inside of you to be able to join and make it something worthwhile. I think that's where I start off.
Absolutely. I think this is a very wonderful start, because until and unless you have that jazba, you have that feeling, there is no point in continuing ahead with this. Although this jazba, as I say, every Indian has that jazba, but you need something beyond just that jazba to actually go and, take your heart and take your life on the sleeve. It really demands a lot. So I
Yes,
think
you always come last.
yeah.
Your country will come first, your unit will come after that, your team will come after that. और उसके बाद कुछ बचा है तो खुद के लिए सोच लेना, उतना टाइम नहीं मिलता.
I agree. So, Major Nupur, my next question would go to you. If people have that jazba, if they identify that, yes, I am meant for this, then what do you think? What kind of subject streams should the child choose in the school? And what kind of preparations should one do to get into the armed forces?
Uh, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Good evening, everyone. And in fact, your question is very relevant, Vanita. Sometimes we ourselves are confused between what we want. The mind wants something and the heart wants something. And the jazba and passion comes from the heart. And sometimes our families, our environment, and typical to Indian environment, the careers were only related to engineering and medical till some time. It's only in recent time that the options have become enormous for each one of us. Though Army or Navy or Air Force, all of them offer a different field, but they also offer a multiple opportunity to each one of them. Choices are between the arts, where you can possibly pursue law and such fields. You can also take science, because most of the science field, whether it's a medical or whether it's a non-medical, both the fields provide ample opportunities. So science is equally available. But for commerce, there are some fields in the terms of accounts and maintenance and other things which are available. But per se, the kind of opportunities the commerce student has got outside, these defense services do not offer as many opportunities. Not that they are not there, but a child who's looking at pursuing the MBA or something and then getting into the army would not be a right path. But otherwise, whether you talk of art stream, whether you talk of science stream, whether you talk of accounts and management, all of them offer ample opportunities. It depends on what you want, because some amount of education, something which I would like to definitely mention here, they are not looking at the bookworms. So one is not looking at that you have to be a child from a 99 percentile or the toppers of your school or your colleges. They are looking at a person. I really don't know how will it go, but then they are looking for people with common sense, which is hardly found these days. So that common sense and the presence of mind in the critical situations, your team building spirits, and such kind of thing are much in demand. But per se for careers and these fields, because typical to India, we decide our fields very early. In some places and some universities and schools, you start after 9th. Some places you start after 11th. So that division of stream happens for any of the three services. Uh, Army, particularly, all the three are applicable. In Navy and Air Force, though we have experts from the Navy and Air Force here also, they also can help me out if I go wrong anywhere. But then the people from the commerce, which are into accounts and administration, and people from science stream, which are into technical fields, and also medical and engineering, all have got sufficient opportunities to join.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think this would make it very clear for the children who are aspiring to get into forces, and they would find a pathway definitely. So, Colonel Dheeraj, Lieutenant Colonel Dheeraj, can I address you with another question here? Yeah, you are on mute. Dheeraj, you have to unmute.
Yes, Vinita, yes,
Okay.
Vinita, yes.
So, can
Yes.
you discuss on all the possible entries in the army to join as an officer? Can you just put some light on that?
Yeah, sure, Vinita. Before that, something which Sandhya stirred in my memory. When I was a small kid, and I used to go with my dad to India Gate. So out there, if you have seen India Gate, then there are names of the soldiers written on it. The martyrs.
Yeah.
So I used to feel कि यार एक दिन मेरा नाम भी इस पे होना चाहिए.
Hmm.
No. So that is something which is really, really very, very profound and motivates you in doing what you want to do in life. However, coming to the question of joining Indian Army as an officer, now broadly speaking, there are two kinds of commission which a person can get into the Indian Army. One is a permanent commission, and the second is a short service commission. So for permanent commission, there are two primary academies which you can enter through. That is the National Defense Academy at Khadakwasla in Pune, and then is the Indian Military Academy, which Self and Vikram have gone through that. So NDA primarily, as it is fondly called, is after your class 12, and you have to give an exam which is conducted by the UPSC. uh, I think it's conducted twice a year, once in the month of April and once in the month of September. And it is advertised in the national dailies as well as the website of UPSC. After when you clear that exam, so there's a merit list prepared and people are selected to go to attend the SSB. Then you clear the SSB. Then SSB is the Service Selection Board. So it's a very somebody had asked this question, Ayush, I think, how to crack the SSB. I really don't know whether anybody can crack the SSB or not. It is the whole SSB is designed in such a manner that you can either clear it or you will not clear it. So I guess even Amitabh Bachchan couldn't clear the SSB for what it takes. So that is the SSB, and after doing the SSB, you go through your medicals. Then merit list is again prepared, and you join the NDA. You serve. You were as a cadet for 3 years in the NDA. After that, the NDA cadets after 3 years they are given a BSc or a BSc computers or a BA degree from Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi, on completion of their 3 years training, and then they join the Indian Military Academy for their last 1 year in the Indian Military Academy before they get commissioned. and they join the Indian Military Academy as gentlemen cadets, and they get commissioned from there after doing 1 year training in IMA, and they join as lieutenants. Similarly, I mean, you got an option to join the Indian Military Academy straight. That is, you have to be a graduate for joining the Indian Military Academy, and the training in the Indian Military Academy is approximately 1.5 years or 1.5 years of training. After 1.5 years of training, you again uh, pass out as lieutenants in the army. Joining Indian Military Academy is a similar procedure. There's a exam which is conducted by the UPSC. It is conducted twice a year, and you have to be, as I said earlier, you have to be a graduate, and then you join the Indian Military Academy. You do your training for 1.5 years as gentlemen cadets, and then you get your permanent commission in the army in the rank of lieutenant.
So
And
Dheeraj,
there's
can
certain
it
things
be, just a question, can it be graduation in anything, or any particular subject is needed?
Yeah, so for the army, you can be a graduate in any subject, BA, BSc. Mathematics is something which is important, which Nupur also brought out earlier, that this is one subject because the entrance exam is designed in such a manner that you have to have mathematics at class 12th level. You know, I was a botany, zoology, chemistry student, no mathematics, and I joined the CDS. So the exam is primarily, it's got two aspects: English, general knowledge, and mathematics and logical reasoning. That is the exam which is there. So you can be any graduate, and you can join Indian military, give the exam, and sit in the exam and join the Indian Military Academy. Then there are some non-UPSC entries, wherein there was a university entry scheme, which is like students who are doing their BTech. They are either in their third year or fourth year, or so they are selected. The colleges are visited, which sometimes happens, sometimes doesn't happen. Army is using its own discretion, and they get directly enrolled into the IMA, and then they do that, and then they do the training for 1.5 years, and then they join the army as a lieutenant again. Then there's a technical graduate course. So those who are studying in the final year or have completed their BE or BTech, and for for doing the BE and BTech, there are notified streams which are there. One has to go through the brochure as and when it comes out. So it is not that you can be BE and BTech in anything. Then you can join the IMA as a technical graduate in a technical graduate course. So it is again twice a year, May, June, and November, December. And the selected candidates, they undergo training for 1 year, and on successful completion of the course, they join the army as lieutenants. Of course, because they have been technical graduates and they have done a 4-year BE, BTech course, they also get a antedate seniority, 1 year of antedate seniority from the date of commission. Then we have the Army Education Corps. You can join the Army Education Corps, and candidates who have passed postgraduate degrees like MA, MSc, MCom, MCA, MBA, and again the subjects which are notified with either first division or second division are eligible. And there's a merit list which is prepared, and they also join in the rank of lieutenant. Then we have the Short Service Commission. So Short Service Commission is primarily through the Officers Training Academy, which is there at Chennai. So, I mean, it is for 10/14 years. What it means is that after doing your 10 years, you get three options. You can either apply for a permanent commission, or you can apply for an extension of 4 years that takes you to 14 years, or you have got an option to leave the army and retire as a Short Service Commission officer. So OTA also incidentally hosts the women cadets and is responsible of training lady officers since 1992 onwards. A lady to be eligible would have to be a graduate stroke or postgraduate in the age bracket of 19 to 25 to apply. So there is a Short Service Commission non-technical men and women course which is there, which is held at OTA. Then there's a Short Service Commission technical course which is held. Then there's a Short Service Commission NCC. If we have done a C certificate with a minimum of B grade, one can apply through its own NCC battalion, and they can also apply. They go straight for SSB. Then you've got the Short Service Commission JAG branch. Nupur was mentioning that if you're a law graduate with minimum 55% marks, then you can apply. And if you're eligible for registration with the Bar Council, then you can apply for the Short Service Commission JAG and join the JAG branch as men and women. So that's it, Vinita. Back to you.
Yeah, that's a lot actually. It's not only that you are at the front. There are so many other profiles that one can take up if one is actually keen. Even like that is really interesting that even if you are from the law background, you have an option of getting into short service commission and going through that. That is really
Yeah, Vinita,
wonderful.
one more thing. If you're a doctor, then you can join as a direct entry with the Army Medical Corps. Or if you go for your MBBS at Army AMC College at Pune, then you can, of course, get commissioned as a doctor in the Indian Army also.
Yeah.
So doctors, lawyers, engineers, everybody is welcome.
Yeah, everybody's welcome. Nice. So now, Varlin, that's a question comes to you because it's only recently that, as a layman, I'm talking that recently only. If you talk about Air Force, you associate women also there, a girl also there. But otherwise, before a few years, I think it was only men that used to come in a picture as a pilot or a fighter pilot. So you being in that profession, I think it would have been really exciting as a journey that we will talk about later. But before that, can you also share the modes of entry into Air Force for boys as well as girls? That if they want to get into Air Force, how can they do this? You are on mute. You are on mute, Whirling. Yeah.
First of all, thank you so much, Vinita ma'am, for giving me this platform where I can interact with, as we call it, next generation and then, a future generation of our nation. And I would like to make it as crisp and as short as possible so that there is no confusion left. Most of the information we have already got through there's an overlap when we talk about Army, Air Force. There are many fields where it is similar. However, if we broadly classify Air Force, it is classified into three major branches: flying branch, technical branch, and ground duty branch. So when we talk about flying branch, there are fighters, transport, helicopters. When we talk about technical branch, we have AEM and AEL officers who look after either AFNet, phones, connectivity, radar, and others who look after aircraft maintenance, maintenance before the aircraft takes off, serviceability of the aircraft. And when we talk about ground duty branches, there are so many ground duty branches which are like backbone of flying branch. So it's like I was a fighter controller. So our main job is to see the air defense of our aerial territory, that no hostile aircraft should enter. Then there's ATC, MET, accounts, ADAM. There's so many branches like that. So when we talk at the earliest, if somebody wants to join, it is after 10+2. The moment you complete your 12th, if you can apply through CDS, like we already know, this entry comes twice in a year. And this is through UPSC, and you can apply and you go to NDA. Then after training, you get trifurcated into Army, Navy, and Air Force. Once you pass out from this is mainly for boys who want to join Indian Air Force into flying branches. Now, depending upon their inclination, it will be decided that whether they'll get transport, helicopter, or fighter fleet. After that, there's for ground duty branches, if you want to join, you can do it after completing your graduation. You need to have, if I'm not mistaken, 60% in your graduation, and it can be BSc, BCom, or any other field, and it is through AFCAT, Air Force Common Admission Test. This also happens twice in a year. After completing your graduation also, your post-graduation, you can join, which is mainly for technical and ground duty, not for flying branch. You need to have 55% of marks, aggregate of all the exams, and then you go for normal SSB, like for after graduation also you go for SSB, even for ND also there's psychological test which is being conducted, and for after graduation and post graduation also you go through SSB, where you go through psychological test and physical test and interviews, group discussion, so all that thing, and then merit list, and then you go to either Hyderabad or NDA in case of after 12th if you apply. Now, apart from these three major things, there are two more entries. One is fast track selection, which is mainly for graduates, which for MET branches. So you need to be between age of 20 to 26, 26 on the higher side, and you can apply for this examination. And again, on the basis of merit, once you clear everything, you go and join Air Force Academy, which is in Hyderabad. Now, apart from that, if any of the children who are involved in NCC Air Wing, they can also join. There is no written test required. You go and you apply. You just need to have math and physics, 2 subjects in 10+2, and you need to have Air Wing NCC C certificate. And then you join, and you go through the normal process of SSB, and it is also for lady officers who wants to join in flying branch of Indian Air Force.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think that's a detailed and a nice description that the people will have, and it is fascinating for me also. I don't know to look at the chat box or to hear all of you, and I am really in a fix because I'm finding it so interesting to know about everything. So Sandhya, can I come back to you on a question? Ki definitely you are on mute. Pehle unmute kar lo. Navy, I think, is the most difficult. I think personally, naval officers have the most difficult task, away from everybody, in the water, nowhere, nothing to be seen. So emotionally, I think that is something very challenging. So I want to ask you about two things. One is any roadblocks that you faced being a woman in the naval field, and also what kind of emotional turmoil does one go through being a lady officer in the Navy?
So I think because we joined that early, the challenges were very different, and the challenges today are very different. However, the basic core part of the whole, relationship in terms of you being in the Navy and in terms of you being in the Navy as a woman is the most challenging part of it is about being addressed as an officer, first of all, rather than a woman officer. That's your first and your biggest challenge will remain that. Everything else it's open to you, literally, because that's a barrier that needs to be broken. I've been fortunate to be posted on a warship, so I do get a little bit of the experience of where the men come from. And I do believe no matter whether you're a woman or a man, serving in the Navy, you need to be out there, at sea, because there is no way you can understand what goes on at sea, the kind of complications that are there, the kind of pressure people are under. Shore pe baith ke, it's very easy to say ha nahi milega, but then that nahi milega translates into a lot of things on the ground, which is on the water in the Navy. So where in the forge everything spreads out, in the Army and Air Force, everything is spread out. The constriction or the restriction with us is everybody is packed like a tin of sardines into a small space, right? So space is so important. Also on a ship, and especially on a submarine, which is a slightly, it's a tougher, division of the Navy. Space is so important, and everybody needs to make sense out of it, make space for everyone else. You cannot be on your own, literally. So every person learns to do everybody else's job as well. So that is why the exposure is so important in terms of understanding what an electrical officer is doing. You may not have the full technical know-how, but every person from whichever department they are in, they are assigned to different other departments during action station and emergency station, which is very, very important to learn. Also because you're not on surface, you are at sea. Now at sea, the point is to be keeping your wits about you, doing about your daily job, but it's also about handling a lot of physical discomfort in terms of seasickness. And it's not the women alone who get seasick. I've seen officers, gunnery officers throw up at different sea states. So the worse the sea state gets, but you're still going to have to do these operations no matter what the storm is, what the cyclone is, all of that you do go through. And I've been posted on a ship when we actually had sea state 7 going on. So I mean, of course the ship was larger, so you don't have so much of rolling and pitching, but despite all of that, you still need to get on with whatever you need to. Now, in terms of the difficulties that I had, like I said, the major one was, of course, about the gender disparity, where you address somebody and you say, "Acha, isse nahi hoga kyunki wo lady hai." So you've got to break that. So for a woman, it is probably 10 times more of the hard work you put in to do this. So if I'm sitting back and probably even having a cup of tea at my break time, it'll be like, "Haan, ye to kaam nahi karte hain." But if a guy is doing it, he's taking a break from work. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't want to do a gender discrimination thing here. Honestly, that's not the case. But the day a sailor, because I'm referring to the Navy, the day a sailor comes and addresses you as Saab instead of ma'am, you have crossed a border. You have crossed a barrier. And for me, it took about 10 days on a ship. When I got posted there, it took me 10 days to cross that barrier. But in those 10 days, all the men tested me out for almost every sphere of knowledge I might have had in my division. So the testing period is there for everyone, actually. It's not just for, only thing is to be addressed as Saab. I've seen a lot of women officers take offense when they're addressed as Saab because they feel, yeah, ma'am kyun nahi bol raha hai? But the truth is that jab Saab bola, it means he is acknowledging you. He is ready to go with you and do what needs to be done. So you can actually, ki the guy is ready with that, accepting you as a leader. So that comes with a lot of restraint from the men who you are basically serving with, and the men need to respect you for that. And I think that accounts for almost everything. So even in the forge, like I remember the army chief said something about women being in the trenches and how the men would get distracted. I am sorry, when you've served, when you've trained under the same circumstances, it doesn't work. Everybody is thinking of just one thing: mission kaise khatam karna hai and zinda rakh ke karna hai. So it's more about your life and the accomplishment of that mission. That is primary. So if people are thinking about other things, about what if they get caught, what if they get captured, and those kind of things. So these are barriers that are not placed by women, literally. These are barriers that are placed by the men who made those rules. हमने जब join किया, those rules were not made by us. Those rules were made by a community of men sitting in a boardroom and saying, okay, let's go ahead with this. MOD with everybody else, and then they decided to bring women in. But the further we go into the armed services, the men need to include those women also into the system. And trust me, we didn't ask to be given special privileges. I keep saying, if you want a woman to take over a division or even a command, for that matter, it was a huge point of argument ki command nahi legi. But then if you're up for it and you've proven yourself on a level playing field, don't change the rules. Don't make the rules slack for women because that person is a woman. Leave the level playing field, but once they are in it and they've proven themselves, don't stop it. So that is the only thing. We've all joined knowing exactly what will happen to us if we get captured. Even if it's the Navy and the likelihood is we'll probably drown first, but still, we know exactly what we went in for. And if we didn't have that mindset, shouldn't have joined. Which is the reason, when somebody gives me an excuse, no, you should be behind. No, we weren't meant to be that. And we shouldn't. So one barrier, another barrier that I found, and this is very important, very critical, no matter which professional field you get into, whether you make it into the armed forces or whether you make it into civil life as a corporate professional. Important thing is to be very aware of the language that you use. Women need to change the way they communicate. And that is where the crux of the whole thing, it lies on it. When women talk exactly like men, they are stated to be rude. Because I'm saying things exactly directly. I'm saying no, and I don't want any questions asked me on that. I don't have to explain myself all the time. So what happens is when we women, for example, we don't like someone at work and the person asks us out for a drink after that. I'm just giving an example. You say, Acha, maybe some other time, I've got work. You make an excuse to get out of the situation. The truth is, you don't want to go out with that person. You don't want to go out for a drink with that person. So the actual answer should be, you know what, thanks, but I'm not interested. I'd rather go home. That would have been an answer. But because men are so used to women making allowances all the time, putting the tone down, talking nicely, making sure everybody else is comfortable with your language, that we get ourselves into this situation of making provisions for someone to be in a comfortable situation, be happy about it, not to give them discomfort. It's not about discomfort. That is the way men talk. And women have been listening to that for ages. So when you speak in the same language, it is taken as rudeness, whereas the truth is that it is just honesty. We're eliminating certain words from our dictionary, like just, maybe, I don't know. But if you don't know, then you don't know. That is how it is. So we shuffle when we are praised for doing something and we'll say, thank you. None of us say, sir, but the truth is that I've put in a lot of hard work. And I'm glad I've gotten this because I deserve it. Very few women actually say it. Well, how many women will just say thank you and shuffle and, okay, no, it wasn't just me. It was, so and so, so and so. Why make excuses for yourself? If you've done it, you've done it. The same thing when it's told to a man, good job done. Ah, sir, bahut mehnat ki maine. That is how you self-promote. Why don't we do it? Because we're making adjustments. We're trying to be modulating our voice for the convenience of others. And that is not what men will obey. Men will obey the way men talk. And that is where women need to break that barrier in terms of communication.
Wonderful. That's actually, it's nice to hear out such strong women. And I think that's a very good example for everybody to understand that how we can get over those limitations and become at par with everybody. Wonderful. That is really nice. So can I come to you, Nupur? Because see, even today, especially in the families where it's not the generations of forces coming down, percolating that down, it is very difficult for a child to persuade the parents or convince the parents to get into forces. They are not ready. They are taken offense of it, or they are scared, and so many things are there. And with you, I think you have had beautiful, amazing story of entering into the army and leaving it. So can we just have a piece of that story so that we also enjoy and the parents also get a heart of yes, they are okay if they have to send their children to armed forces. So can we hear you out on this?
Thank you, Vanita. In fact, you brought me back to my childhood memories, and which as Lieutenant Sandhya said, that these are the barriers. So the first barrier when we talk of is the barrier of breaking the stereotype yourself. We today, I would say, or the time when I wanted to join the Air Force, frankly speaking, Army was not my first passion. I have been trained as a pilot, but then I joined Army later. But it was not an easy ride. And the first thing which convincing was to be done, I am also into career counseling. This is something for the parents. A general mindset Indian parents have about their children. Until some time ago, it was engineering and medical. These were the two career options. So a child should either go into these, then only he is respected, he or she, oblique, you go into government services. So this would become a second option. When it comes to girls, somehow our parents only tell us, okay, do this. So your job, or rather your responsibility of managing your family and your career, will happen simultaneously. So they pre-decide what kind of careers a girl can choose in Indian society. And they do not see career as a first option. Like, for example, if me and my brother both are studying, there would always be a priority for his career coaching, for his education, coaching classes, performance. For me, though I may be talking of almost 30 years back or 35 years back when I was in school, where people were okay. If girls are studying, if you are passing your classes, it's okay. You would have a career choice and an opinion of yourself that was not existing in the society. So this was something which I felt was very important. Irony of things is that I have a brother and a sister also. So my elder sister was that homely type of girl, and I, being a second child, was brought up as a tomboy. So things were very good. I was never good in studies. So this is also break one more myth that to get into army, you don't, or into services, you need to be a topper. I was average performer. My liking was into the sports field or co-curricular. So I may not be found in the classes, but I was always found in the sports field. I played nationals also. I was, you name a event on the stage, whether front of the stage or backdrop of the stage, I was a part of it. But somehow the parents always had a trouble. I may use or change over to Hindi. पढ़ाई कर लो ये सब बेकार है. This is a normal mindset of the parents. It has changed now. When I am dealing with my son, I am a mother of a teenager. When I am dealing with a son, most of the parents are slowly changing. But the moment you come to 10th and 12th, still the whole focus moves back to studies. So your co-curricular, your overall performance, your participation in sports, or I'm also an NCCC certificate. So when Varlin was talking about that to get into the Air Force, if you have NCCC certificate, be it of any of these streams, Army, Air Force, Navy, it does help to get into services. But then these all were add-ons. These were never a priority, or parents never promoted that you participate. So it was a struggle between us and the parents all together for all my 12 years of schooling that we had to fight for. Now, my entry into the services were very melodramatic or filmy kind of things. So on one side, I was brought up as a tomboy till 13. When I was 13, everything was goody good, because I was the boy of the house since I was the second child. All of a sudden, the moment I hit puberty, they realized, hai to ladki. So they started expecting that I should behave like a girl, I should walk like a girl, I should talk like a girl, and I should do the things which a girl of that age is supposed to. But then possibly I had already charted my path out. And I joined NCC and I was doing really good in NCC. Unlike my choice of my parents, my battalion commander had recommended my name for the Indian Air Force, and I went for the pilots. That time there were no fighter pilots or other pilots in Indian Air Force for women. So it was helicopter pilot. And my name was sent through NCC battalion only, and they only sent me the SSB letter and all. Without any preparation, I had just walked in. I told my father that I have to go for SSB through NCC, and this has come. So on one side, he was very traditional, but he was one side very modern in his approach, because we always stayed out and he was in service. So he said, okay, you want to go to Dehradun, go and spend 6 days and come back. Not realizing that I will get selected also. So his idea of me going out was that बच्चा 6 दिन बाहर जाना चाहता है, भेज दो. I went, I got selected, I came back, and now was that turmoil in my house, which was a filmy drama, that my grandmother, just to share with all of you, my surname is Gupta and my maiden name is also Gupta. I am one of those feminist kinds. I'll not change my surname. I couldn't change the husband, so I found a person with the same surname and got married. So anyhow, I came back, and the day I came back and told my parents that I am selected, and in a matter of 3 months I need to finish my degree, and whatever, this was February 93, and I have to join the academy by June 93. So my grandmother said, अगर तुम फौज में जाओगे तो हमारी लाश के ऊपर से जाओगे. And her logic was, like I belong to a business community by surname Gupta. So हमारे यहाँ लड़कियाँ बहुत ज़्यादा पढ़ती नहीं है, career aspirations होने नहीं चाहिए बनिए लड़कियों के. Sorry for any offenses meant to any community and any person. But then that time it was this in our family. And the issue with them was, अगर तुम फौज में जाओगे तो तुमसे शादी कौन करेगा? So the fight of getting into the army and surviving into the army, or the breaking of those glass ceilings, come much, much later in the society, typical to India, whereas it starts from your own home. It starts from within, that do you want to do that thing? And are the people who are most closely associated with you ready to accept you as a person you are, or are ready to support you? So there was one particular day when I had to tell my father, I was pretty young, I was just 19 and a half at that age. And I had to tell my father I want to join. He said, then get out of my house and survive on your own. Now, for a child of 19, I would still say child of 19 because my son is almost that age, and I'm still fending for all his resources in the house. Uh, to take that call that you want to leave your house with no income and nothing, and take that call whether you want to join the services or not, though it was a matter of pride, but matter of pride for me, maybe not for my society, maybe not for my parents. Today, he may have a different opinion, but at that time, it was a challenge. It was a challenge for, and I'm sure there would be number of girls today who are, I'm talking about a career, there are number of girls who are fighting the challenge to go out on their own, to travel on their own, to go out for evening a party out. They have to seek a permission or somebody will accompany from their houses to go out for those things. So yes, and it took me 4 years to convince my parents. I pursued chartered accountancy for 3 years, but parallelly that passion did not die down. And somewhere I felt I am not meant for sitting on a table and doing. I was meant for mountains, rivers, and deserts to explore, and adventure was in my blood possibly. So it took me 4 years. I continued pursuing my studies because my parents wanted that way. And after 4 years, I got an opportunity through NCC again to join the army. That again through one of my battalion commanders with whom I was associated in NCC. So after a gap of 3.5 years, I took that plunge. And that day, possibly since I was working and I was earning myself, I could take that call on that, okay, if this decision is given to me today that you get out of my house, I would be ready to take that decision and move ahead. So it was more, today when I recall, it was very filmy. And those 3 years were a challenge for me to survive, do what I'm not liking. In fact, some of the prominent people today are from the firms I was working with. I was working with Ratnesh Mama Chartered Accountant, and some of the chartered accountants who were there with us that time are one of the top leads today. They used to recall that whenever Nupur used to come for work as a chartered accountant article, I used to say, this place is not meant for me. I'm here, but I'm meant for somewhere. So that passion, when you are talking of, has to be there in your mind, and your determination has to be so strong that barriers would be there. There is no field, no career which will not face you, give you challenges, which you will have to face. But then your passion, if it is strong, I'm very sure you can break through and you can find your own space and your place in the life. So I feel for any girl in the Indian society, every day in itself also is a challenge. But yes, breaking your own challenges at home first and then the work environment challenges, you have to be strong enough to face them.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think so many people would have been in a position to relate to what you were saying, because even today these things are true. You know, if a child wants to go, yes, they have a lot of limitations. And as you said, even today girls have to ask to seek permission from parents, even to go for a party or going out of town for a few days. So that was, you know, hats off to you that you did that, broke through in those times also when things were tougher. So that was really interesting in story. Thank you for sharing it. So
Thank you.
Dheeraj, I want to ask you one thing, that what do you think that the forces, the armed forces have to offer to any individual if one opts for a career in them? What is it? What is so specific and special about it?
Okay. So, as somebody borrowed earlier, armed forces, can we look at it anyway other than looking at it as a career? Apparently, yes. Armed forces is primarily a way of life. You know, it was something which was ingrained in us, and something we never thought it as a career. I mean, till date, I never thought armed forces as a career. So, why is it a way of life? Is as you behave at home, you know, all the freedom which you experience at home, all the love which you get from your elders, you know, and all the affection which you have for your juniors, all the mistakes which you can afford to do in your home, all the protection you get because you're a member of the family, how you learn from your elders, how you teach or mentor your juniors, how you emulate your superiors, the hand-holding when you are down, the sheer respect and award which you get when you accomplish something from at home. As you experience all this in your, 2000 square feet home with your family members, similarly, you experience the same in the extended family of the armed forces. I mean, notwithstanding, let's get back to the question. So, what exactly are the ingredients of any job? Be it the army or be it anywhere else also. So, what is one looking at in any job? So, I would look at probably job security. I mean, my job has to be secured to some extent. You know, then I need to have respect when I have in whatever profession I choose. I need to have respect in that. I look for respect in that. Of course, I look for emoluments and my salary, the compensation package, as it is called in the corporate world. Then I look at some kind of a retirement benefits, say, pension and medical benefits. I look at that. Then it should be an ideal fit, something which I always wanted to do. I'm doing that. It may be a corporate lawyer, it may be a CFO or a CEO. It is something which I always wanted to do. I'm doing it. It nurtures your passion, your profession. If it is nurturing your passion, is something which you always wanted to do and you're doing it. You know, I mean, there are families which have got chartered accountants in them, one after the other. Then there should be some opportunity for growth, in any career or any profession which you choose. There has to be some excitement. I don't know how many of us are excited in various professions which we are doing, but has to be some kind of excitement and some kind of a family security also. So it's also looked at. Then job satisfaction. Then what I'm doing, I'm satisfied in doing that or not. And then multiple roles you get to perform in your profession, which hones your skills and make you a better man. So I ask you, which of the profession or career path can tick all the above boxes except for the armed forces? So armed forces is one profession which ticks all the boxes and makes you and gives you a totally holistic life, if I may add, when you are there in the armed forces and even if you're out of the armed forces. So as a guy who took premature retirement, I am very much part of the armed forces, and I identify myself as an army officer first rather than a corporate guy. Back to you, Vinitha.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. I think those are important things, and if the all the check boxes are ticked, nothing I like it. And plus, to add on the pride question that one has when in the forces, I think that is the star of everything. The pride question is really, really strong, and that really makes or breaks the things at time. So, Verlin, I come to you. Can you talk about the riches and the challenges of a life or a career in Air Force?
Of course, ma'am. If I talk about challenges, challenges are more or less, I would say, are similar as Sir discussed. If you are talking about job security and having a stable job where you can rely upon pension, these are few added benefits. However, a lot of challenges which comes with the job. You can never be off duty. You are always on duty. So even if it is a very normal thing whenever we say whenever we are partying or after party after working hours, we were not allowed to say bye, or we were not allowed to say uh, have a nice day, sir. We always used to say good day, just a good day. That means that good night can only senior say, that you cannot disturb him now. Junior will always say good day, that I can always call you, it's still a day for you, you are
Yeah.
always on duty. So this is the type of it is not a job, it is a lifestyle that it is a different life. I think everybody should start celebrating their birthday whenever they join the armed force. It's a different way of living. It is not only a professional front that changes our life, but also socially. Whenever we get into academy, we were not only taught how to ace in our professional branches, respective professional branches, but apart from that, how we are supposed to sit, how we are supposed to eat, how I'm supposed to address, how am I supposed to meet and greet when I'm meeting families or senior or junior, my grooming, everything becomes organization's responsibility. Every individual who is there in my organization to groom newly commissioned officer. So yes, it's a lifestyle. So this itself is a big challenge that you have to, you have to migrate from whatever you have done in your past life to a whole new different life. If I talk about other challenges, uh, anybody who is in Forge, I will not agree if somebody says that any officer who has served in Air Force is lacking time management. It is a very, very crucial part of the armed force, because whenever, as we were logging in for the, normal logging in for the webinar also, everybody logged in early because we were told to cater 5 minutes in case if there is any contingency, in case if you reach any wrong venue, in case you are in wrong attire. So it caters for that. So time management, then decision making is another challenge, which being very closely associated to flying branch, it is very important. Like I remember, since I served as a fighter controller, I have participated in exercises where I'm controlling 50 to 55 aircraft at any given time, and it used to continue for 40 to 45 minutes. Now you understand that 40 to 50 aircraft roaming around in a particular aerial section of the, or I would say, we used to say it air defense sector, we call it, flying at 3 kilometer, 4 kilometer, 4.5, 4.2, 4.1, any aircraft cannot be at same level. So that is the, I would say, decision making and quick decision making that you need to have in case if there is any aircraft which reports emergency that they want to, that aircraft want to descend from 4 kilometer to 2 kilometer. So that fast your mind should work, that okay, this is experiencing emergency, so rest of the aircraft should be away from this aircraft, this becomes priority, rest of the things can take a backseat, but at the same time, mission should always go through. So that's why we say mission first and people always. So, we are dealing with lives. Somebody who is flying in the air, when he says that he's experiencing engine failure, or there is hydraulic failure, or there is bad weather, or he has entered crowd, any type of emergency takes precedence over anything else. But at the same time, mission will go through. Like I have controlled many Republic Day fly past and 8th October fly past, whatever we see on Rajpath, like this year only we have seen 5 aircraft flying together in a formation just 200 meters apart from each other. So that is the amount of excellence, and everybody who is joining such branches or such force need to have. That is another challenge, and nobody is born with it. They train us for it. So it is, when they select you, they know you, that they can train you and they can make you what they want. So that is another thing. So I would say, ma'am, these are small little challenges which is entirely related to the personality. When you frame your and tame your personality, you are already you become an officer. So that is it.
Right. So a lot of learning, unlearning, and relearning happens
Of course,
there.
of course,
And
of
yes,
course, ma'am.
and the
Yes.
most common thing that I find, all of you talking about is mission first. And I think that
Yes.
polishing, that finesse that comes in each one of you is, yes, there you can contribute it to your Fauji careers and your Fauji training, definitely. That was really nice. Sandhya, very, very versatile lady, and who's gone through so much, been there, know all. I would say that for her. I mean, when I was reading her profile, so much, it was so elaborate. I didn't know what to pick and what not to pick. So after such a, versatile life post retirement, I will really appreciate if you can put some light on what can be the prospects, different prospects in career after the retirement from forces.
See, when you have a second chance at a career or a second go at what you want the rest of your life to be, it is not about following the masses really, which is unfortunately something I keep seeing. And when most, officers who are about to leave within a year or 2 years, or officers who have left, ask me this question, I always tell them it is about standing out. It's not about fitting in. Mostly, that's what it's about. Because when you stand out, then you're carrying a certain something which is not common to everyone. And I find about 95% of the officers, 95% literally, are only going after PMP, which is project management, you know, that's your certification. And you've already done that actually, haven't you? You've been handling projects, you've been handling operation. Every operation is a project. So you already have that qualification because you're carrying years of experience in that. What else is there that I can do? So it's always about going back and thinking back to when you were, say, probably 11 or 12 years old, which most of these youngsters have probably just about crossed that age. Please keep those things in mind, write it down somewhere and keep it with you, because those are your dreams. Those are your other dreams. Let me put it that way. If your dream is to join the services, those are your other dreams that should not be ignored. And your success factor is really not dependent on, your bank balance or how much money is in that account or a designation. Your success factor needs to be on how many of those dreams you have managed to fulfill. How I had a bucket list of things. So when I left, my list was really small. It has been growing because my bucket has no bottom. वो leak कर रहा है तो मैं भरती जा रही हूँ उस पे. So each time something gets ticked off, I'm adding to it. But my whole success factor has only been on pursuing what makes me a little more than just what others see me as. So the evolving happens only when you are willing to take a step, willing to, jump off a cliff, literally. You're looking at the water below, bahut thanda pani bhi hai, you're gathering up courage to take a leap, right? And what if I drown is basically the question. What if I hit the rocks instead of the water? But what if you learn to fly? You don't know, but if you don't give it a chance, it's not going to happen. Yeah. So I'm a primary risk taker on that count. Personal satisfaction, sleeping at the end of the day with knowing that I've learned something new every day, that keeps me going. And every individual has got a different path. It's not about joining the crowd and going with what people are advising you. Really, they've not been in your shoes. They've not had the dreams that you've had. It is as personal as feeling the rain fall on your face. Only you know what that feels like. Nobody else feels it the exact same way that you do. So whenever you're following a second career, and this is, I'm surprised because, when I left the Forge, to just, keep it in perspective, I was 29, which is a pretty young age. So it's a good time to, I think it was a reasonable time to leave. But I had precisely $700 in my pocket. That's all I had when I left. So you can imagine all my money went to, catering for my daughter, because I was a single parent by then and I had separated, divorce was unheard of. So I faced a lot of those things, but that didn't make me who I am. But those $700, what I made of that, and in the process, I have come to a fact that I have had absolutely no money. Then I've had some, then I've had no money, then I've had some, and I know it's a going cycle. वो आती रहेगी और जाती रहेगी. And I had no pension. Most of the officers now have pension, and they're still scared to take a risk and do things that they've dreamt of doing. And that's the saddest thing ever. Don't give up on your dreams, because that's what makes you who you are. And that is what you need to pursue. So in professional terms, let me just put the focus on, you need to figure out what you actually enjoy doing the most. And it can be in any field. I can just divide it up into probably 8 or 9. One is where you love constant creating. You're the kind who has brainstorms, you've got ideas, and एक idea खत्म नहीं होता, दूसरा दिमाग में आ जाता है. That is one part. The second is where you love to structure things. It's like an engineer. So you are engineering things, you're putting things into perspective in a certain format. It's like making a manual. If that is what you enjoy doing, do that. Then there's talking about it. I love you. You give me a mic and give me a hall full of 1,000 people, and I'm happy as that. It gives me energy. What brings out that energy in you is what you need to expend, because that's what your driving force is. If that is what you love to do, use it, do it. The other thing is where there are people who network really well. They are able to connect people to each other. Oh, that person, I know this person can help you out. That person, you become a connector, you become a networker. Then there are people who love to solve problems on a go-to-go basis. Those are the guys who do really well in, admin, because they're happy resolving problems on a day-to-day. That's adrenaline rush of resolving a problem. Operations, that is the field for you. You should be in operations then, because you'll really succeed in that. Same goes for people who love to bargain, who love to get a good deal out of something. Get into sales, get into, vendor management, because that is where the deals happen. So you can become a CSMO instead. You can become chief of sales and marketing officer. You can get into marketing. Marketing is actually for the promotional things, but selling items. People who want the money in their pocket and they don't want saman in this warehouse. Sales is for you. Same people who love numbers, the exactness of numbers. They are the ones who get into accounting. People who love to do research. कि अगर एक सेल फोन खरीदना है 50 लोगों से पहले पूछोगे, go research, read on the internet, get whatever information, and then you're making a decision. You are the guy who should probably get into wealth management, advisory services, because you love to do research. Whatever you are saying, whatever you're advising someone is with a quantum of research that you're doing. Not everybody can do that. And the fun part of all of this is these are all divisions you can work on. But the fun part of it is that you have the capacity as a person in the armed forces or a person who has had that experience in the armed forces, that you are born leaders. You can mentor these people n number of times, but just pick the field in which you want to mentor and just go ahead and do it. It may not get you the money. I get into a lot of forums where officers say, everybody is lowering their standards by agreeing to work for 25 lakhs, 30 lakhs. You don't know where they're coming from, what their financial implication is like. Don't judge them for that. But if your job satisfaction is what keeps you going, that passion is there, it will help you succeed. Without passion, you cannot succeed. So keep that passion. Jazba wahi hai. But now it is your dreams, because you've done your service. When you get onto the next level, get onto a good personal level for your own dreams, because you shouldn't be pushing your dreams to your parents. If there are any parents in this, in this audience today, my advice to you is please live your own dreams and let your child live their dreams. That's important. Otherwise, we don't break that change. We don't break that drama, that cycle. Your children may be born of you, but they are individuals in their own right, with the soul, with the mind of their own, with a body of their own. Respect that. And they will respect you for this.
Absolutely, absolutely. So well said. And I agree with you totally that a person has to love what he or she is doing. A person has to understand what is his or her own USP. What is he or her as a person inclined towards? What is your passion? Work towards that. And second thing that you said, that yes, if you want to grow in your life, you have to take risks. If you can't take risks, growth will not come to you automatically.
You can
Very
also play
right.
golf.
Yeah. True, true.
You've earned that retirement, just chill and
Yeah.
relax.
Dheeraj is smiling on that because
Yeah, I can see that.
his life is like golf based now. Nupur, I want to come to you because we are towards the closing of the session. Just a few more questions. So, Nupur, tell me, in fact, tell other people why should they choose forces or, in comparison to corporate world? Why not corporate world and why forces? What are the benefits? We have spoken about a little bit, but yes, what is your add-on on that?
I think Colonel Dheeraj had already mentioned a lot of things, and Lieutenant Santha also talked about all those the pros and cons of the career opportunities. Not adding to that, I think most of the points have been taken. Whether you are talking about the passion, whether you are talking about the perks and privileges, whether you are talking about the opportunities, Lieutenant Sandhya has mentioned about there is hardly any field in the services. When I'm using the word services, I'm incorporating all the three. You are trained for almost everything, whether you are on a ship or you are on a ground. You have to do vendor management, you have to do the marketing, you have to do the logistics, you have to do the movement and transportation and facility and everything. You name a thing, it is there, including something which is we have a full organization for a disaster management and something which is a part and parcel of the services itself. So you have managed the crisis and the critical situations where you are emotionally also strong and where you are technically also strong, all these three. So when it comes to choosing the corporate and choosing the services, I would only say that find out before choosing a career, find out what do you want. There is a very beautiful concept in Japanese which is called ikigai. In case
Ikigai.
we have heard of.
Yes, yes.
That would tell you find out a field where people are ready to pay you for what you want to do. So that finding out in itself is a challenge, and most of the children of today, or most of the parents, you in fact brought out a very good point where you said that the parents had their own dreams, keeping whatever situation they were in. That children today would have their own dreams, which may or may not match with what the parents were dreaming when they were young. And sometimes what happens is the parents start forcing their dreams upon the children. So instead of going by what the parents want, yes, listening to parents is apt, but then in the process of listening to parents, do not forget your own dreams. Sometimes, yes, you may have to break the norms. Sometimes you have to face the challenges, but listen to your dreams. Second is uh, something which I feel, though with the Seventh Pay Commission, things have changed a lot. But as Colonel Dheeraj mentioned, it is not about the money. The life and the services is not about the money, but it is about the lifestyle, the kind of people you interact with, the kind of environment you live in, the kind of in fact, I was reading the newspaper that Delhi seems to be polluted, and some particular area of Delhi has been marked as the most polluted. So, the kind of environments you stay in, whether professionally or personally, uh, you need to identify what is your priority. Something very important I feel is which will affect the ladies also all the more. Uh, uh, there is a question. Okay, there is a question from Colonel Dheeraj. I think he has asked me what concept I was talking about. The concept was of Japanese, which is about ikigai. So there are four components. We can discuss about that sometime later on a personal level. However, what I was saying was, uh, once we identify what we want to do, then you need to find out where do you want to look into. Just to give you some statistics, the divorces in these services are comparatively, I'm taking a comparative figure, so are comparatively much lesser than what are happening outside. So most of the time, a notion in the society is that you have to travel far away, you have a long distance relation and all those things. So it is difficult managing a married life and so many other things which come, especially from the lady's perspective. But trust me, in fact, one of these days I was reading something and somebody asked officer, what do you earn? Because we were comparing about the corporate and the services. The reply was that I earn almost 100 salutes. So the money possibly is not going to give you the satisfaction which you are expecting from your life. Initially, yes, it may mean money is something. I'll not say that money is nothing, but yes, money may mean some amount for the some conveniences of life. But in a long run, it matters is what is your quality of life. So compare those, try and find out where does your satisfaction lie. Your satisfaction lie in those green leaves, or your satisfaction lie in on those other factors as to what you are doing. While we were talking about various career opportunities, and as Lieutenant Sandhya said, something here also I would like to say, knowledge is something which sometimes people used to say, well, we were kids, is you can learn from others' mistake. So either you do your mistake yourself or you learn from other mistakes. And the same mistakes which you do at a young age, they become an experience over a period of time. So I took a totally different path, unlike most of the service officers, and I moved into academics after a course with the IIM Lucknow, and I'm a professor with one of the educational institutes. Last 15 years or almost so, I have spent in educational institutes, and I am into career counseling, guidance, teaching subjects. Now, I am fond of storytelling, which Lieutenant Sandhya was mentioning. That what are you fond of? So you need to find out what are you interested in. So I was fond of storytelling, and to share with you advertising today, especially the digital marketing and advertising. is nothing but storytelling. To connect with the audience, to connect with the people, what are they looking for, and to make them understand that yes, there is something between you and me, which is talking about the storytelling. And my field of specialization is advertising. Why I'm telling you all this is that you can move into any field. After serving the army, I'm a part of corporate. Number of times I'm designing the advertisement for various firms. But it depends on how do you evolve over a period of time. Maybe I had this creative aspect while I was a child at 11, 12, or 13. Somewhere down the line for those 10 years, I may not have done anything creative, but that stayed at the back of my mind. And today I am conducting a workshop on the creative aspects, designing the banners and posters. So you need to find out what is that your liking is, what is your dream, and which aspect of your skill is matching with where you want to do, or what you want to do, or where you want to go. And the time span is also sufficient enough that in this time span you can always enhance your skill. There are various online platforms also where children can do or enhance their skill. So there is no restriction per se. Even if you are served in the army, though given a choice, I would suggest, if we want to change the environment in the army, I think every environment in the country, every individual of India should at least serve 5 years in the services and then possibly come out, whether it is a bureaucrat, whether it is a corporate, because the kind of discipline that we are talking of, the kind of belongingness a service personnel will have in the country would automatically come. And the kind of discipline that we expect that every individual should have. So, as a advice, I would suggest everybody that do not look at corporate, join these services and then join any corporate. And trust me, these services.
Sorry, Nupur, to interrupt. There's a wonderful question, just relevant to what you were speaking, absolutely in sync with that. One of the person is asking, what are your views on making 1 year military service compulsory for all youth of India? So I think that's
See,
a very relevant
I
thing.
a very relevant point, but somehow the minimum training any individual today goes to get into these services is 1.5 years. The minimum is around 1 year, which is for short service officers. So making 1 year of service and spending lakhs and lakhs of rupees and training you would not match. That is why I said a minimum stipulated time of the, I'll say, conversion of your training value and the skills you have developed to get the benefit out of those skills for the country. You should minimum serve 5 years, and then all the career opportunities should be made open in corporate or in government. Possibly most of the challenges which India is facing today, half of them will be resolved once we get into that kind of a model. And this kind of a model is prevalent in most of the countries also outside. There are some countries which have this kind of a model where serving in these services is mandatory. As a die-hard fan, though I left the army at one stage, everybody, it was brought out that everybody has a different challenge and different path. I had different challenge at a certain point of time, and I had to move away from army, but I'm a die-hard army fan. And I would say to everybody, join services and then think of any other career. So for me, the services come first and the corporate comes later.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, some of the people are, commenting there that listening to all of you, they feel that what have they missed in their lives. So, not serving is something that we all civilians have missed. So, coming to that, Dheeraj, you have lived both the lives. I mean, in fact, all of you have lived that kind of life as a civvy also and as a warrior also. So, Dheeraj, can you tell me what are the similarities and differences in both the life as per you?
Yeah, so Vinita, most interesting thing is that I don't know whether most of us know that or not. The corporate, the so-called corporate, or for that sake, the government also was designed and structured basis the army. I'm not talking about the Indian army. I'm talking about army as a whole, all over the world. The methodologies, the structure was at some point of time adopted. The backbone of it was the army. However, over a period of time, they all evolved because the motivations were different. The environment in which they were operating was different. So, having said that, let me talk about some of the similarities because I've had the experience of I've done what 21 years in the army and 7 years outside in the corporate. So there has been a huge amount of unlearning which has gone into place to work in corporate, and of course at the same time I found a lot of concepts and methodologies and processes which we were following in the army, which have helped me in my corporate career also. So at the outset, both of them, they value integrities. If I talk about the similarities first, both the army as well as the corporates, they value integrity. For that sake, any profession, then both value sincerity. I mean, if you're sincere in your job and the way you go about it, and army has made us disciplinarians primarily, so both value sincerity. Then there are deadlines, both the places. The environment of functioning is entirely different, but then there are deadlines. Then both the organizations are structured. So we are pretty used to working in a structured organization. Some of the corporates are flat, but that is also a structure. So there are structures in the organization and they both value hard work. Uh, Now, talking about one of the major dissimilarity which I found, which made my transition, which was very challenging, was that in the civil street, they are generally working in the shades of gray. You know, in the army, we are looking at, in the armed forces, we are looking at either this or that. You
That.
know, what does the SOP say? But in the civil street, it is more or less in the shades of gray. Of course, army has got, I mean, armed forces has got a column in the confidential reports when we write, and that is tolerance to ambiguity. So we do get, we are expected to work in very ambiguous situations, you know, where there are no orders coming, and how are we supposed to work and all that, how are we supposed to perform. So that of course is there. But having said that, army that way, armed forces that way, much more structured. They are more process oriented than most of the corporates. Some corporates of course have to be dependent on process. And the other difference is that when you join the armed forces, so it is not only you who's joined the armed forces, it's your whole family has joined the armed forces. So your wife is part of 9 Madras, the unit. You know, she's a lady of 9 Madras. That is what she's called at. Your kids are Colonel Saab's children, you know, so they're all part of the organization. They know my commanding officer very well. They know my colleagues very well, uncles, aunties, and all that. So that way, it is the whole family is part of the so-called profession or career, if we call the army as such. But when we are outside in corporate, so only you are in the corporate. You know, your family, your wife is doing something else. Your children are doing something on their own. But yes, so that is one of the major differences between the two.
Yeah, yeah.
Vinita.
Yeah, that was really, it made things more clear. So I have a last question to Verlin, because Verlin is, I think, in a very fascinating career. You know, she has been into flying and all this. I mean, for a layman, सबसे ज़्यादा अच्छा वही लगता है, शू 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 हवाई जहाज. I think that is the most fascinating for everybody. So Verlin, I would want you to tell us that what are the specific traits one should possess, or maybe work on, or train oneself to be successful as a Air Force officer.
Ma'am, first of all, after having such a big discussion on challenges and everything that Air Force or all the three armed forces have to offer, I would like to say, like Sandhya ma'am said, that jazba, that passion should be there. If you don't have that passion, please don't join. If you think that you are joining, that you will come in in a Maruti and you'll leave service in a BMW, please don't think that. Please don't join. But if you think that you want to grow as a person, you want to have a quality life, you want to, Dheeraj sir said, if you want to give quality life to a family, if you want to evolve as a person, if you want to dwell on traits which you also don't know that exist in you, then you should join. And talking about other traits that we need to have is to, first of all, you need to have that passion for the nation. You need to be a good human being, that whenever there is a problem, you need to extend helping hand, because nobody can sail through alone. When I talk about Forge, you need to be a team person, a team worker. You need to take your team along. You never say that I have done it, we say we have done it. So that thing should be there. Confidence will automatically come, because they give you power, they give you position, power and skills to achieve things in the profession. So that thing will come. You need to be, and one most important thing that I want to say, not only for keeping in mind this career in mind, but also for normal healthy lifestyle, everybody needs to be physically fit.
Yeah.
Every kid, no matter you want to score 99%, you want to score 100 out of 100, but then devote some time towards your physical fitness. Don't be a kitabi kida, that I have to mug up this thing, I have to go onto the stage and say this, I have to write this much, score this much marks, I have to get admission into this college. Take a break and give some time for your body. Be physically fit.
Yeah.
Interact. Think that what you want in life. And you need to be like I said, it's a lifestyle. Whenever you are like in services, whenever you are late, that is one thing that you are late, but then you need to go to the senior most and own up, sir, I'm sorry, I was late today, I overslept, whatever happened, you need to own up. So self discipline needs to be there, and you need to always remember that you are always there for nation service, your unit service, your profession, for your profession. So that self discipline, motivation, physical fitness, and of course time management, these are few small but very important things that everybody needs to have for every profession. But yes, keeping in mind forces, these are must.
Yeah, absolutely. I think forces or no forces, these are the skills that have to be instilled from the beginning. And physical fitness, if you're physically fit, you are mentally fit. It goes hand in hand. So these are very important skills. Time management would help you anywhere and everywhere. So that was a wonderful thing to end it. And any one of you, four of you, if you want to end up with a note before I thank you all, I open that platform to you. Any one message that you all want to give to everybody before we close it?
Well, you know
So
what?
Vinita, yeah, Sandhya.
Go ahead. Please.
Yeah.
Please
So
go ahead.
Vinita, thank you so much for this lovely platform and for all the people who have attended. It is one of the most honorable professions which one can be a part with or be a part of, and it goes down in the legacy. Your generations of family talks about it, and my grandfather was a colonel, or it's like that.
Yeah.
Give it a thought, and it will be a great thing which you can do for your country. When I was giving my SSB exam, so a quintessential question which comes up, in most of the SSBs is, why do you want to join the army? So I said, well, even the corporate guys, or yeah, any normal man who's not an army pays his taxes, and he's serving the country. So if I say that I'm joining the army to serve the country, not exactly. But the fact of the matter is that you join the army because you are ready to give the supreme sacrifice to be a part of your country and to be a part of the history. So thank you, Vinita. That's my last note.
That was wonderful. That was really wonderful. Yes, Sandhya.
Yeah, I'll just try to add on a little bit to what Major Nupur was saying. When she spoke about Ikigai, that's kind of one of the philosophies that I'm following in my life as well. So it's total resonance there. I'm not just following that. There are three more things that I'm actually following, which is, you can do this anywhere and everywhere. One is Ikigai, it basically means your reason for being. It's a Japanese philosophy. So why are you here? So that is your reason for being. I added a Greek word to that called meraki, which means put your soul into whatever you do. So putting your soul into the work that you do, that was my second thing. The third thing is I've never had a really smooth life. So I also believe in the philosophy of kintsugi, where it's again another Japanese term, where you rebuild yourself from your broken pieces with something valuable. You join yourself with something valuable, so you become more priceless. Your end result is always, a little more priceless. And then the fourth habit, which I've kind of picked up now, after so much, is the habit of gratitude. So how much are you, how grateful are you for who you are? So what you give out is something that comes back to you from the universe. And that's, again, another Japanese statement, which you say, arigato gozaimashita, which means I receive money with appreciation. For example, I give money with appreciation. I receive food with appreciation. I give food with appreciation. So that appreciation recycles itself. It comes back because you're giving out goodness and you're taking in goodness. Now you must be wondering why all this Japanese stuff is coming to me. Essentially, my daughter's, taken up Japanese studies, but that's not where I started with. The philosophy came much earlier than what she wanted to do. But I find that when you expend goodness, it will come back to you. We are all very angry people as well. So whatever energies you're expending is the energy that's going to come back to you. And I do get annoyed at a lot of things. But I also find that when you allow for space and respect people's privacy and the freedom that they have with themselves, it becomes easier for us, people in the armed forces, also to conserve that freedom. India is not a democracy because of, a certain type or a class of person. India is a democracy because it has inclusiveness from various different types of people, languages, and there is unity in diversity, which we need to maintain and look after, whether we remain as civilians, whether we join the armed forces, or whether we become veterans. I think that's very important. And that can be your reason for being.
Wonderful, wonderful. That was
Thank you so much for this. Thank you so much, Vinita, for inviting me for this.
Major Nupur, would you want to end up with a note?
One, I would like to add to something what Verlin was mentioning. Something which I feel very important in today's environment is that we all should work on our communication. One, while we are looking at joining these services, communication becomes very important. The officers' communication is in English. However, we are dealing with Jawans and JCOs, which come from different environments and different communities and sectors in India. So they all follow a different language. So one is that we need to work on both the languages, and something which all of us would agree, the kind of troops you are commanding, we need to learn the same language. So when he was saying 9 Madras, if I'm not wrong, Colonel Dheeraj, you mentioned 9 Madras?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So Colonel Dheeraj mentioned 9 Madras, and I come from Corps of Engineers, and we had Sardar troops with us or Punjabi troops with us, though some came from UP and Bihar also. So learning or reading and writing Punjabi was a mandatory language for us. So it's not only about your language, but you also have to learn the language, or we need to learn as people do what kind of a language people are understanding. So communication is one very important thing, not only about the regional and Hindi and English, but there is also one important thing which is related to communication. We should be able to communicate ourselves in various platforms of emotional states. Sometime in India, as Lieutenant Sandhya mentioned, that we are very angry or we are very aggressive kind of people, and for everything we don't need a reason to fight. We fight for any excuses. So we should be able to manage our emotions well and communicate in those various phases of emotion. If you're happy also, if you're sad also, if you're angry also, we should be able to maintain that emotional balance in our communication. This is one. And something to talk of my personal philosophy, I feel there is, since we were talking about various terms, there is something called Ubuntu. There is also a story to it, but we'll talk about that sometime later. But
Yeah.
then I feel Ubuntu is a term which means how can I be happy when people around me are not happy? So it's not about the satisfaction of an individual, or it is not about me, me, and myself. It is about the people and the team we have been working with. So our endeavor should be to look after, maybe first from my home, because in army we had a different platform. First for my men, then for the unit, then for like the country, the unit, the men, and then comes me. Time in life, to get the satisfaction, you also need to understand first you. You stay satisfied, you stay happy. If you are happy, then you will keep the people. And if you and your people around you are happy, you will be able to contribute more productively to the society and to the country. If you yourself are unhappy, you will not be a good citizen or a good human being itself. So with this, I feel a small message to everybody that stay happy. Life is, God gave you life, but he never said that life is going to be easy. It's going to have challenges. It is how you handle those challenges what will make you different. So with this, handing over to you, Vinita. Thank you. Thank you for this platform.
If you don't have love in your cup, you can't pour love. So have happiness,
Right.
only then you can spread that synergy. So younger one, my dear Verlin, one, you are the flying one. So a flying note from you.
Ma'am, I think after so many learned people have already spoken, there is no place for completing this session with my note. But yes, I'm very sure that kids enjoyed this session, and it was a learning lesson for me as well.
For all of us. And you know, I don't know, आप लोगों के सबके सल्यूट अलग होते हैं, किसी का ऐसे, किसी का ऐसे, किसी का ऐसे, मुझे नहीं पता कैसे करना है, but I really bow my head to all these
Thank you so much,
sacrifices
ma'am.
you all have made, all
Thank
the
you.
struggles that you have gone through. I don't know. I see when I was born to an army, an Air Force officer, but then when I was born after that, he was never in the forge. But I still have goosebumps, you know, talking about forge or talking to people who are forgies. So maybe it isn't in the blood, it percolates, I think. It percolates in your DNA somewhere, you know. So I think all of the children, all of the people who would have heard us today, if they want your nation, the nation to prosper in some way, if they really want to contribute in some way, I think Forge is the way ahead. And it is, as you all said, it is essential to discipline them, to have a different kind of finesse and polish on their skills and their persona. I think it makes a man. Being in the Forge, women included in that man, when I say, it really makes you a person worthwhile. And I'm so privileged that you all were here. I thank you from the core of my heart. And I think with Ikigai and Ubuntu and all those things, the synergy was created. I feel like talking and talking and talking and hearing you out and, you know, really interacting more and more. It was a wonderful platform to interact with all of you. And I think I've made that connect where I feel people think like me. And even if they're 4Gs, they still are human beings and wonderful human beings at heart. Thank you so much. And for sparing this time, I am really privileged and honored. Thank you all from the core of my heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Thank you, Jai Hind.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you. Okay, Jai Hind.